On this episode of Lapeef, Let's Talk.
What else did you ignore? Because it's not just the fact that you didn't ask questions. What did you blatantly ignore that this man showed you consistently that you failed to accept and realize that's what was going on? See, you're thinking that, oh, I didn't ask enough questions. No, you didn't make enough observations.
If you're just joining us, welcome to Lapeef, Let's Talk. Moving on to our third topic, which is asking a lot of questions before marriage. Asking a lot of questions before marriage. When dating be next, do you feel as though all those questions should be answered? Or do you think that there are some questions that should not be answered? It should just be saved for later.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think in the dating phase, which again for another show, some people may date multiple partners during the dating phase, but I think dating when you now transition into that seriously dating, in which this is like a one-to-one person that you're engaging with, hey, it's best to ask now. It's almost like looking at a car, then you drive off the lot. Before you drive off the lot with the car, that this is what you want. You need to ask you need to get your Carfax, you know? So the thing is, and Tawana, don't get mad. I know you always say that I compare situations like this to like equipment or items or physical objects and things like that. But same rules apply as far as the logic. I say, why not? You know, this is really, I mean, you don't have to be you know how I feel, Anton, about the term transaction, but it doesn't have to be transaction. But I think this is the opportunity on how you get to know your person. I have friends of mine that something as simple as children, right? We talked about this earlier. Like, hey, do you want to have children? Would you be amenable to one child? Some people are like, no, I don't want to have a child, or I don't believe in, marriage at all. I just believe in just being single or being just in a relationship the rest of my life. Or I don't believe I don't believe in taking showers more than once a day. You know, all these different things. You need to know everything about this person before you look to invest. Because, Anton, I hate to say it, I've been on the show with you for some months. And the thing is, I always disagree with your approach, but your content, actually, I think it does make sense. Whereas, like, you mentioned previous shows about being the CEO, right? My only thing, I feel like you could have two CEOs or a CEO and a CFO. Nonetheless, I think that like a business, you need to think about who are you investing in? What is your ROI? And I think these questions that we have to go through are essential and necessary to the more long-term sustainable success of relationship. Because I think that people break up because they don't ask the tough questions or have the tough conversations, And the thing is, I know for me, I want somebody that has that level of grit and understanding that they're able to be transparent with me about anything, right? If I feel like that you have misled me, deceived me, or didn't tell me the whole version of self before I decided to put a ring on it, it's not just about that issue. It's like I'm mad because you have provided half truths to who you really are and what you represent. And the thing is, if I'm investing my life as far as you being my better half, you know what? As we began to date, I feel like I should be able to ask you all the questions. And if you can't, then you know what? We need to explore it at that moment. And if you don't feel comfortable exploring it, then you know what? Maybe this ain't it. So I don't see nothing wrong with questions. I think my only caveat would be the way and the approach to ask questions. Because I think sometimes people ask questions just being straight up nosy, or the questions are one-sided where I can ask you those questions, but you can't ask me those questions. Hey, Tawana, I'm coming for you. This is a few shows back. You mentioned about, oh, well, my answer was that I'm not answering that question. Nah, forget all that. Like, the thing is, if we in this one-to-one, if we pass the talking phase and we're now dating seriously, then I feel that, like, man, you should be able to be honest with me. And being honest doesn't mean you being honest about what you're not going to tell me. If anything, that's a red flag. So the thing is, I need JR, before you move on, I need to know all the red flags prior to me ensuring that this is somebody I'm taking home to mama. Because if you're not considered almost squad, then I'm not taking you home to mama. I'm not giving you that privilege.
Nick, you do understand you can ask all the questions and it still won't even matter. It's still gonna be some red flags that you're gonna learn.
Maybe
that
so.
You're gonna learn along the way.
Maybe so. But the thing is, I want to be informed with my decision making. I'm not saying that for relationships, but just in life. This all gives me the information I need to make the best informed decision on whether I want to continue in this relationship and this path that we're on, or do I need to just step back and be like, you know what? I'm going to just focus on me, have a great life.
Anton, asking a lot of questions before marriage. How you feel about that?
I'm a fan of it. I don't think it has to necessarily come in the form of questions. I think it could just come in the form of meaningful conversation, right? On top of that, I think the caveat to that is that it doesn't really matter how many questions you ask because people are gonna tell you what they want you to hear. That's a caveat. The other caveat on top of that is that I always live by this. The road to hell is paved with the best of intentions. Like, you may have the very best intentions to do all of these things that you propose and say that you feel, but people change. They evolve, they grow, they recede in how good they are at certain things. People get big as they get older. Like, real talk, people evolve and they become a different version of themselves every single year. So, yeah, I do understand the idea behind asking a lot of questions, but I would approach it differently. I would say, why aren't people more forthcoming with the information? Because the quicker you are to highlight what it is, who it is that you are, the more easily you are able to make a decision and eliminate the amount of time that you're spending with people unnecessarily thinking that things are copacetic when actually they're not. So that's my thing, is to be more forthcoming with information, be confident instead of trying to impress, because I would say that there are more people alike than there are different, but there are so many people that's with the wrong partner instead of being with the right one because they're afraid to be honest about who they are from the very get-go and throughout the conversation and throughout the relationship. So that's my only caveat, but I do support the narrative of, leading with truthful information as it relates to who you are, how you feel, how you mean to approach a specific situation, and then whatever happens after that happens.
Okay. Tawana, asking a lot of questions before marriage. How you feel about that?
I think it's pointless. I'll tell you why. This is what I'll do. I'll ask questions about your finance and something that I can validate and see on paper. Okay. Like, what's your credit score? Okay. Because you can show me that. What's, how you paying your bills and what's going on with you? Are you caught up on your rent? Like, I need to see these types of things because you could be with somebody and the landlord knocking on the door talking about they behind and they rent. Like, I need to see how you handle your finances and how that stuff works and things that I can confirm in black and white. But me asking you something that, like Anton said, can change the following year, week, next month, like, I don't even really see the purpose, because guess everything else I'm going to observe for myself. And I'm going to find out you're a shitty person. I'm going to find out you have no integrity. I'm going to find out you're a liar. You can tell me I'm an honest person and I do great things. Like, that doesn't mean anything to me if I see you deceiving people. If I honestly see it, I'm not going to be like, well, he told me he was honest. He told me he was a great guy. If I honestly see you doing stuff that's against that entire narrative. So I don't really care about what people tell me in the beginning. I always feel like people run a game on you in the beginning. Like, that's my whole approach. And Chris always say I'm a pessimist. He'd be like, can you just think on the optimistic side? I'm not that way. I see it, the negative first, and then I work my way up. And that's just how that's how I think. So I'm that kind of person where I'm observing you. So I'm making my own judgments based on your actions and how you treat me and how you treat others, not just how you treat me, because I'm hoping you invite me around your family, around your friends. I'm seeing how you interact with your friends. I'm seeing the people you choose to be around. I'm looking at important things like that. The only thing that, like, I wanted to talk about with my man when we first got together and said, okay, we're going to live together. It was like, what's your bills? How much you going to pay? What you got going on? Like, that's the type of stuff that I think was like key to everything else. Everything else we learned by kind of being around each other and interacting with each other and seeing how we were. So yeah, I just don't see the point of asking all those questions, especially some of the questions that he asked, except the life insurance question. I think that's relevant because if you don't have life insurance, like stuff like that you can verify and be like, oh yeah, I got a policy, it's in my mother's name or whatever. Like stuff like that you can just make sure a person on top of their finances and getting their stuff in order. Other than that, nope, I'm not asking.
The one thing you didn't emphasize is how many bodies you got. That's an important.
Well, okay, y'all keep
I was
coming
thinking about that question.
Y'all keep coming up with that question.
Body count.
And I was asked that question and I answered it honestly. So that is not, whatever I said playfully on this show is what I said. But I will answer that question honestly. And when you're in the same circle, sometimes you can't really lie about stuff. So that's how it goes anyway. So you just got to be honest and you put it out there. You do what you do.
You know what? I do gotta, and not to say we gotta go down that road, but the body count. I was thinking about that too, Anton. But the thing is like at this stage of the game, like if I'm vibing with you, like what is the benchmark for body count? And I know that we may have had it like as young heads growing up, but right now it's like, hey, I don't know. I think that even with Tawana, I kind of disagree with Tawana. I like maybe. I feel like I struggle with this because, Anton, you mentioned this a couple of weeks back with the whole Kevin Samuels shit. But it's one of those like, hey, I was able, and I think you're the same way. I was able to, meet my lady when I was young. So my level of questioning is different. Well, I'm assuming it would be different now versus how it was then. But I do agree with you that it's not necessarily about the questioning like JR posed, but more so about action. I feel that I could take away more about understanding a person based on their actions and how they behave, like even a conversation without even asking a question. That's the part where I feel like when you make it to that aspect of being analytical in your life, that you could able to understand what someone is about and what they're not about based on a conversation that you don't even have to ask, which technically is a skill. It's not something that is just innate. But I mean, I don't know. You mentioned a good point. Like, are we really going in kind of assuming at this level that everybody's going in being the most honest version of themselves when they ask the question?
Hey, I want to put something out
there.
I
don't know.
So let's just say that somebody had their previous relationship, they had a bad experience. Mm-hmm. And so now they want to ask questions. Mm-hmm. Because before, when they didn't ask questions, they was kind of caught off guard what's happening. So would you say that it's okay then for them to ask questions?
Can I answer that, JR?
Go ahead.
If it's somebody that I truly feel that like I would like to build with, hey, go right ahead. Because I feel like I want to make sure that I set tone, at least from my perspective. I hope that the person I'm engaging with also feels the same way, that they want to build. I want to be transparent and honest about expectation setting. So the thing is like, if that's a thing for them, what am I getting defensive for? If I'm talking facts, then I have no reason to get defensive about it. And honestly, I think right now where I'm at, if I am defensive about it, I'm at a point in my life I can be able to explore and articulate why this is an issue for me or why I struggle with having this conversation. But there was a point in my life that I didn't feel comfortable with certain questioning. So that's the part where I think a lot of this goes back to almost where we at in our life, not based on age, but really, maturation level.
Okay. Tawana, you mentioned earlier that you kind of base your questions off the action. Or you don't have any questions. You just kind of see.
No, she had questions. What's your credit
score? Okay, well, like the finances.
But like CEO questions, right? So when you think about like building this business, those are her questions.
Okay. Tawana, I want to ask you this.
I question other things too, but I question them as they're relevant.
Right. Okay.
But I don't question myself. So here you go. This is what I'll say to a person who didn't ask questions before. What else did you ignore? Because it's not just the fact that you didn't ask questions. What did you blatantly ignore that this man showed you consistently that you failed to accept and realize that's what was going on? See, you're thinking that oh, I didn't ask enough questions. No, you didn't make enough observations, and you didn't trust your observations, obviously. Because if I see someone consistently doing something and I say, hey, this, what's going on? You're missing in action during this time and I can't get in contact with you. That's what's going on. And that person is telling me some stuff that I don't believe, and he consistently do that. I'm going to believe whatever it is that I feel like is going on if I don't feel like I'm getting the right response. So that's how I am. If a person shows me who they are, I believe them and I go with that. So that's just like, that's how I operate. I don't play games with people. I don't assume that that they're doing the right thing. Like I automatically like, oh, he been missing for a week. Okay, I can't get in contact with. Oh, I automatically assume that he married with kids somewhere. Like that's kind of my brain. Like I'm that kind of person. I don't know why. I think like that. So maybe
married with kids though. Like, damn, you think they got a whole got a whole family?
You don't know my life. You don't know my life. Okay, you don't know my struggles. So I didn't learn my lesson. Sometimes not that is.
No, I get it. Obviously,
what I'm saying is, I trust myself and I trust my observation and I trust what I look at. So I ask questions, but if I get a response that I know is BS, I trust that. Like I have an instinct that I say, that doesn't sound right. Something's not adding up. And I don't ignore that gut inside of me. A lot of people do. And what I will say to her is that she didn't just not ask the right questions. She didn't see things, or she didn't pay attention to things that were very important. And she blatantly ignored them. And that is what led to everything that happened. I don't believe that it's because she didn't ask the right questions, because a male blatantly lied to you.
Do you mind? Can I ask Tawana a follow-up question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
And Tawana, I'm asking you, and no shade to you, Anton, but I feel like you kind of fall into the same bucket category. But, like we are who we are. We have our families. Yeah. But Tawana, I know you came from a previous, dedicated, marriage or whatever like that. And the thing is, you feel like as far as you as like a more kind of older adult, do you feel that like, is there, do you feel comfortable asking these questions at this juncture? Like, is there like an issue that you've seen that like, is it an awkwardness of kind of probing or prompting or creating conversations to get to know more? Is it something just easy as just saying like, hey, so what's about woo? Like, is there something simple, or is this more of a very kind of tough and more kind of strategic conversation you have to have with getting to know someone as far as where you were at this stage of your life, post marriage or post previous marriage?
To me, it's always been, I'm a very social people person. So it's real easy for me to get all up in your business. And actually, some people may say to me like, dang, you asking a lot of questions. Like, it's real simple for me. I don't feel awkward, but I do feel like people are hesitant to tell you things about themselves, which I completely understand, because some people ask me questions and I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to share that.
Yeah.
Right? Because
I asked that because we talk about questions. Like, like, because the four of us, we ask each other questions all the time about things, but technically this is something that is really, it's kind of awkward, sometimes to create
you guys ask me
atmosphere.
Sometimes y'all ask me questions, I'm like, I don't know if I want to share that, but if I share something, I'm like, I don't know if I should have did that.
Sometimes I kind of put you on the spot just now. You know what I mean? So it's one of those like, hey, you got to understand, and hey, Anton, I know you shake your head, but it's one of those, how I'm about communication. And the thing is, some people are not ready to receive the information. I admit, the shit that you say sometimes, I'm not ready to receive that shit. Not on the content, but the delivery of it. The thing is, it's a yin and a yang to this, that it's like it becomes like this. It has to be the right environment, in order for people to have their guard down, in order to be open to respond honestly as well.
I mean, I think in the beginning, a lot of questions. That's what you do. It's like back and forth. You guys are asking questions. They want to know about your kids, your parenting, your family, and you find out things about the other person. And so you do that. That's what happens, I think, in the beginning of any dating relationship, and it should happen organically. But you should also pay attention to the actions and the signs. Like, I just don't want people to completely ignore that based on what someone is telling them. Right. That's why people end up in those catfish situations where they're talking to people for years and years. They believe everything the person's saying to them online, and they ignore blatant issues like, oh, that person don't want to video chat with you, or you can't call this person. Like, they ignore simple stuff. So I feel like, I don't want people to get caught up in what people say all the time.